I stepped into the house, an unfamiliar heaviness settling in my chest. The door to my gaming room stood ajar, a dim light filtering through the curtains. But what froze me in place was the emptiness of the room that had once been my sanctuary. Everything familiar, the computer desk, the glowing monitor, the mechanical keyboard, the headphones, all the carefully chosen and assembled components, were gone, leaving behind a silent, cold void. I approached the desk, my fingers grazing the bare wooden surface. A wave of emptiness pulled me down. Months of saving, countless late nights learning and assembling each component, all to create a small corner in the house where I could escape external pressures and indulge my passion and dreams. Now, all of it had vanished. I turned and walked into the living room. My mother sat there, her eyes showing a flicker of unease upon seeing me. I asked slowly, "Where's my computer setup?" She sighed, her voice choked yet firm, "I sold it all." I stood in shock. Sold? Everything? You sold my $10,000 setup without telling me? She lowered her head, silent for a moment. Finally, she said, "I needed the money for the family, for your sister. I know you valued it, but please understand." My heart felt crushed. It wasn't just about losing material possessions, it was the betrayal, the feeling of being disregarded in my own home. I had believed that family would be my support, the foundation upon which I could build my future. But they had dismantled it all. I wanted to cry, to scream, to accuse, but the words caught in my throat. Not because of the loss of equipment, but because of the loss of trust and recognition. They had taken away not just my belongings, but my dreams and efforts. I left the room, glancing one last time at the space that had been my gaming haven. The evening light streamed through the window, illuminating the emptiness. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and reminded myself to stay strong. This wasn't the end, but a new beginning. I wouldn't let anyone steal my dreams and values. I knew I had to move forward, but today I lost a part of myself. I stood in the living room, staring at the invoice in my mother's hand. The $10,000, the entire value of my meticulously built gaming setup, was gone. But the deeper pain wasn't the loss itself. It was how my stepfather and mother spoke of it, as if it were a trivial toy, unworthy of discussion. My stepfather lounged on the sofa, beaming as he talked about the brand new motorcycle they had bought for my half-sister. "She needs it to get to school easily," he said enthusiastically. "Selling your toy covered the cost. Don't overthink it." I frowned, a sense of injustice rising within me. "Toy? You think my $10,000 computer setup is a toy? That was my property, built with my own effort and money. How could you sell it without even asking me?" My mother interjected, her voice cold and resolute. "It's not solely yours. It's household equipment, and your sister needed the bike more. I don't see anything wrong with using that money for her." I bit my lip, struggling to comprehend her words. To them, my setup wasn't a passion, a future, or the result of my hard work. It was merely household equipment, something anyone could decide to sell without my consent. Meanwhile, the expensive motorcycle for my sister was the only priority. "Why do you devalue everything I do?" I asked, my voice trembling. That wasn't communal property. It was my effort, my dream. Selling it without telling me is unfair and disrespectful. My stepfather shrugged, seemingly wanting to end the conversation. "Why are you making a big deal? We're taking care of the family. You still live here, you should be more accommodating." I stood still for a moment, then slowly walked out of the room. The feeling of being neglected and belittled was indescribable. Each component of my setup now turned into money for a motorcycle my sister could use, while I lost not just a piece of equipment, but also the respect and acknowledgement from my family. I wondered if I should continue living here, where my passion, efforts, and assets were treated as disposable, while their priorities never included me. Silently, I returned to the empty room, looking at the void where my kingdom once stood. A part of me felt stolen. But from that pain, I knew I had to rise, to rebuild from scratch. Because the one thing they couldn't take from me was my will and dreams. Nonprofitpro.com +5 ArabTimesOnline.com +5 philstarlife.com. +5. I sat quietly before the empty space where my setup once stood. The corner that once glowed with LED lights, where I spent nights learning code, streaming for hours, now bore only faint dust marks on the wooden desk. Everything was gone. But the heavy silence stemmed not from the material loss, but from the cutting words of my own family. My mother stood with crossed arms at the doorway, showing no remorse. "You're too attached to that computer," she said, her voice laced with reproach. "Other girls go out, make friends, attend school properly. But you lock yourself in with that machine, acting like a lunatic." I looked up, striving to remain calm. "I'm not isolating myself. I'm working. Streaming, content creation, video editing, graphic design. That's my job, not play." She shook her head. "Job? Staying home all day, not helping out, just typing away and calling it a future? Your sister knows how to live properly. She studies, has friends, a bike, and takes care of her life. Look at yourself." I didn't need to glance over to know my half-sister was smirking. "That pile of junk?" she sneered. "It's just a kid's toy. You're grown up but still living in a fantasy. Grow up." I clenched my fists, lips pressed tightly. Those words felt like slaps. To me, that setup wasn't just equipment. It was where I found myself when no one else in this house understood me. It connected me to a community that listened, respected, and acknowledged my work. Here, all my efforts were dismissed as toys. My stepfather entered, his voice icy. "I don't understand how you plan to live. Always glued to that machine, no social skills, no real life. Don't blame us for stepping in." "Stepping in?" I retorted, eyes welling up. "Stepping in means selling everything I've built over 2 years just because you think it's meaningless? Ignoring my dreams to pamper a sister I can't even call my own." He glared. "You're losing control. We're teaching you reality." I remained silent. Not because I had no argument, but because I knew any words from me would be dismissed. They didn't need reasons. They just wanted me to be silent and compliant. But I was no longer the fearful child. I stood up, looking them straight in the eyes, for the first time, without bowing, without apologizing. If living truly means denying myself to please others, then I'm sorry. I'll live truly in my own way. No one responded. And in that moment I knew I had grown up. I stood in the empty room that had once been my world. The gaming chair remained, but everything else, the monitor, mechanical keyboard, the custom-built case with the cooling system I assembled, was gone. Vanished as if they had never existed. Inside me was a cold void, mirroring the bare corner before me. Not because of lost possessions, but because the true theft was of my trust. Footsteps echoed on the floor. My mother appeared at the doorway, her gaze indifferent. "Still upset? Why the long face?" I didn't answer. She continued, "Don't tell me you thought that pile of electronics was your future. Come on, son, wake up. That nonsense isn't a passion. Stop dreaming." I clenched my fists. My heart pounded, not from anger, but from pain. Her words made it clear she didn't know or understand who her son was. All those months I spent self-learning, from video editing to coding streaming interfaces. Each dream built through sleepless nights. Yet to her, it was all nonsense. My sister entered, holding a glass of milk, her voice sleepy yet biting. "Still not crying? They only sold your toy, and you're acting like someone died." I turned to look at her, my eyes not angry, just empty. She smirked. "Passion? Please, everyone has passions, but they also know how to live properly. Unlike you, hiding in your room, thinking you're the main character of the universe. Grow up." I stepped back as if struck. Not a physical slap, but one to the heart. The people I called family, the ones who raised me, lived with me, not only misunderstood me but mocked my pain. The atmosphere in the house grew increasingly suffocating. After the setup was sold, I hardly spoke to my mother or stepfather. But the one who made everything worse was my stepsister, Bella. She walked around like the house belonged solely to her, deliberately turned the TV volume up whenever I had online classes, and spied on what I typed just to twist it into lies and tattle to mom. I held it in. partly because I was too tired to argue, and partly because I knew I would never win. In this house, Bella was always the golden child. Then the accident happened. The brand new motorbike they bought with the money from selling my setup, Bella rode it to her tutoring class. That afternoon, someone called my mom to report that Bella had been in an accident, broke her left arm, and suffered abrasions on her shoulder. I stood silently in the hallway. I didn't feel glad, nor did I feel sorry. I just felt empty. When Bella returned home, her arm still in a cast, face pale but mouth as sharp as ever, she pointed straight at me and snapped, "It's your fault." I froze. "What did you just say?" "I was so upset because of you, I couldn't focus, and that's why I crashed," she shouted, eyes full of blame. "You made the whole house so tense. I couldn't think straight because I kept picturing you sitting there silently with your headphones on." Mom immediately turned to me, her eyes red with fury. "See what you've done? Always lost in your delusions, turning the whole house upside down. Even your sister can't have peace." I gave a cold smile, pulled out my phone, and played an audio file titled, "Bella Blaming Others," MP3. Bella's voice rang out loud and clear from a few days before. "Whatever, I'll just say more bad stuff about him for fun. What can he do to me?" Then I played another recording of her telling a friend on the phone, "My parents will believe me no matter what. I'll say he slammed the door and kept me awake, even if he wasn't home at the time." No one said a word. Mom stared stunned. Bella went pale. My stepfather stood up but said nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe, they would apologize or at least admit Bella was wrong. But no. Mom snatched the phone from my hand and turned off the screen. "Why are you recording your own sister? What kind of sick behavior is that?" My stepfather growled, "This is a family matter. You don't bring in evidence like that. Is this how a big brother behaves?" I laughed. A bitter, hollow laugh. They didn't care about the truth. Only about who made life easier for them. And in this house, I was never the convenient choice. That night, I locked my door and typed in my journal, "The day they chose to believe lies over truth was the day I stopped needing them to believe in me at all." That night, I sat alone in my room. The faded LED lights reflected off a scarred keyboard, damaged from countless hasty repairs. My phone sat propped up on an instant noodle box, its camera pointed at me and a blank white wall behind. I took a deep breath and pressed "Go live." "Hi everyone," I began, my voice trembling but my eyes steady. "I wasn't planning to stream tonight, but if I don't speak, no one will ever know the truth. And I'm tired of staying silent." Viewers trickled in, 50, then 200, then over 700. I told everything. How my family sold the $10,000 PC setup I had built myself. How my mom and stepfather called it a pile of junk. How they used the money to buy an expensive bike for my stepsister, a gift exchanged for my dream. I shared how I was mocked, dismissed, treated like an unwanted guest in my own home. "I'm not telling you this to complain," I said, my voice more steady now. "I just want one thing: recognition. That kids like me, the ones who spend their childhoods building rigs, learning to code, streaming late into the night, we matter. We're not lazy. We're not useless. We're building our world." The chat exploded. Messages poured in. "I was like you. They don't understand, but I do. Don't give up." Then a notification popped up. "You just received $50 from username, buildagain_88. I froze. Then $10. Then $100. More and more small donations followed, each carrying a heartfelt message. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Truly. The live stream went on for 3 hours. By the end, I had raised over $4,000. But more importantly, for the first time, I felt heard. Understood. Not alone. A few days later, I got an email from a nonprofit that supports young creators. They invited me to work in a new co-working space, fully equipped with high-speed internet, studio rooms, and mentors. They said my live stream had moved a lot of people, and they believed I could turn pain into a real career. On my first day there, I was overwhelmed. Everything was modern, professional, and strangely welcoming. I got my own desk, a new PC, and licensed software I had only dreamed of using. One team member shook my hand firmly and said, "We're not just giving you a place to work, we're giving you a fresh start." I started streaming again, now with a quality webcam, clear audio, and crisp visuals. But the content stayed the same, raw, honest, real. I shared my coding journey, game engine experiments, behind-the-scenes vlogs, and with every stream, my community grew. Then came an email from a local gaming hardware brand. "We've followed your story. If you're willing, we'd like to sponsor your equipment and co-create inspiring content for youth." I read that line over and over, not because I didn't believe it, but because it was the first time in my life a brand said, "You deserve this," instead of, "Try harder if you want to be enough." I didn't want revenge on my family. I didn't want them to suffer or regret. I just wanted to live a life they once thought I couldn't. I wanted success, not to prove anything to them, but to prove to myself that I wasn't invisible. That I could choose, rebuild, and stand tall. I still remember the loneliness in that house, the silent meals, the distant looks, the words never meant for me. But now, every message asking, "Are you okay?" Every donation with a kind note, every thank you for speaking out, is a new brick in the home I'm building for myself. I used to think I was just some computer-obsessed kid, like they said, but now I know I'm a creator, a builder, a sharer, a connector, and no one can take that from me. That afternoon, I sat in the co-working space, sunlight pouring through the large window, illuminating a screen filled with plans for the coming month. A live stream about game development techniques, a creator collaboration workshop, and a guest talk at a design school. I typed the final line in my digital journal, "I no longer live in the past. I'm alive, truly alive. And this time, it's because I chose it." That evening, the house was eerily quiet. I sat before my new setup, the glow of the screen casting a gentle light, so different from the tension hanging in every corner. In the hallway, my mother's footsteps approached, slow and hesitant. She stopped at my door and knocked gently. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with worry and hesitation. "You've been so quiet lately, avoiding everyone." "It's not like you." I didn't respond. My hands kept typing, eyes fixed on the screen. Partly because I was live, partly because I no longer knew what to say to them. Every time I had tried to explain, to open up, I ended up being dismissed, treated like a selfish kid glued to a screen. She paused, then added, "Don't be like this. The whole family is worried. Your father, I mean your stepfather, he's noticed too. Says you've changed. You're distant now." I stopped typing. Change is inevitable. My tone was calm, but inside, a storm churned. When people get pushed to their limits, they either collapse or grow. She was speechless, then turned away. The door closed, but I knew that wasn't the end. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, my stepfather barged in. No knock, no permission. "What the hell is this?" He held up his phone, showing my live stream. The chat box was exploding, over 9,000 viewers. And there I was, on screen, recounting the loss of my setup, the erasure of my dreams, and how I started again from nothing. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Shaming your family on the internet? Making us look bad? Are you proud of this?" I removed my headphones and stood up to face him. "I'm telling the truth. No more, no less. If that embarrasses you, maybe it's because you know it's wrong." His eyes bulged. "Don't be disrespectful. That setup was in this house. It belonged to the family. You live here, so everything here belongs to us." My fists clenched. No, it was mine. Every cent saved from streaming, fixing computers, making videos. I kept every receipt, every component list. "If you want proof, I'll print it. It was my property. And you sold it, without asking, without telling me, and used the money to buy someone else a bike. She's your sister." Mom cut in, her voice trembling. "She needed it to go to school. And you, just glued to your computer day and night. I was afraid you were losing yourself in a fantasy." That so-called fantasy was the only place I ever felt I mattered. I stared at them. And now, that fantasy has become reality. A 3-month sponsorship from a gaming gear brand, collaboration invites from 2 major YouTube channels, and a community that believes in me. I'm supporting myself. My stepfather faltered, then sneered. Supporting yourself? By begging strangers for money. I smiled coldly. They didn't give handouts. They invested in what I create. My content, my skills, my story. Out there, I'm seen. In here, I've always been invisible. Strangers believe in me, while you only ever doubted me. Silence thickened. Mom looked away. My stepfather stepped back, his anger replaced by a mix of discomfort and disbelief. Then he muttered, "We raised you, fed you, educated you. And this is how you repay us." I tightened my jaw. "I never asked you for money to build that setup." I said. "Out there, it's called passion. In here, it was just an excuse to take things away. You can think I'm ungrateful, but the truth is, I owe you nothing." The pause. Then Mom whispered, barely audible, "You've really changed." I looked at her and nodded slowly. "Yes. Because if I didn't, I'd always just be a shadow in this house. And I don't want to live like that anymore." My stepfather looked like he wanted to say more, but Mom gently pulled him away. They left without another word. The door slammed shut. I returned to my desk, slipped on my headphones, eyes stinging. The chat was still alive. People asking what had just happened, sending encouragement, a few new donations trickling in. But I said nothing more. Just sat there, hands on the keyboard, feeling a little lighter. For the first time, I wasn't afraid to speak the truth. I didn't need their understanding or their forgiveness. I just needed to be myself, even if it meant cutting all family ties. Because I no longer wanted to live in a house where dreams were treated like sins. And for the first time, I felt like I was stepping into the light. Alone, but not lonely. That afternoon, the sky turned gray, thick clouds blanketing the horizon like a heavy quilt. In a house that hadn't echoed with laughter for a long time, Mom sat at the dining table, eyes full of hesitation. She hesitated for a long while before finally speaking, slow and weary as though she'd mulled over this for many sleepless nights. "I'm going to move out and rent an apartment," she said, eyes avoiding mine. "I think we all need some time apart." I blinked but wasn't surprised. The fractures in our relationship had reached the breaking point. This was inevitable. I nodded and replied gently, "I understand. Maybe it's for the best, for all of us." "Yeah," she sighed, then quickly stood and left the room as if fleeing my gaze. In the following days, the atmosphere at home grew heavier. I started packing up my things, organizing the equipment that the community had helped send me. I rented a small room near the city center, not big, but enough to set up my own studio, a place where I could work, stream, edit videos, and rebuild my dreams on my own terms. I signed a long-term lease, committing to myself that from now on, I would take care of my life independently, relying on no one. As I was boxing up my main monitor, my stepfather walked into the room. He stood with his arms crossed at the doorway, his cold eyes scanning every item. "What are you going to do with all this junk? Move out and live on your own?" His voice dripped with sarcasm and disbelief. I turned around and stood up straight. "They're not junk. These are my work tools." "Work?" He scoffed. "How long do you think you can survive on those online donations? A month? 2? Then what? Crawl back and mooch off your mom again?" I looked him straight in the eye and said firmly, "I've signed an official sponsorship contract. I have stable income from ads, my community, and private clients. I'm not coming back. No matter what happens, I'll stand on my own 2 feet." He opened his mouth to respond, but I turned away and kept packing. I didn't need him to believe in me. It was enough that I believed in myself. That night, I started my stream. On screen was a corner of my new room, simple, tidy, warmly lit to create a sense of safety. I shared with my viewers that I was about to move out, begin an independent life, and face the challenges ahead. The road won't be easy, but I believe everyone deserves a new beginning, I said. Even when we're belittled, even when we're hurt, we can still choose to rise. The chat filled with congratulations and encouragement, along with donations carrying messages like, "We believe in you," and "You're living the dream for so many." I smiled, not because of the money, but because of that genuine belief, something I had lacked for so long from the people closest to me. But family doesn't let go easily. In the final days before I moved, my stepfather constantly pressured me, nagging, mocking, even publicly insulting me in front of the neighbors. He said I was just showing off, pretending to be someone for fame, and that everything I did online was a worthless charade. I didn't fight back with anger. Whenever he shouted, I stayed silent, finished my work, locked my door, and went back to creating, learning, and building my channel. I had learned how not to let those taunts pierce my heart anymore. A few days later, as I was about to leave, my mother appeared. Her face was tired, her hair tangled from worry. She looked around the empty room, then at me, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't understand you. I should have listened more. Now I see, you're different. More mature, more determined, and I'm sad I didn't believe in you sooner." I looked at her, my heart softening, but I kept my distance. "Thank you, Ma. But I didn't do all this to be forgiven or accepted. I did it to live true to myself. You don't have to understand everything, just respect it. That's enough." She lowered her head. For the first time in my life, I saw her not trying to argue. She turned and slowly walked back to her room. No more accusations, no more judgmental stares. Only silence and regret. The day I left that house, the sun peeked through the clouds. I rolled my suitcase behind me, carrying my gear, my memories, and wounds yet to heal. But more importantly, I carried a resolve, never to let anyone else control my life again. I'm not a rebellious child. I'm a young person who chose to stand up and move forward, even if alone, even if misunderstood. And out there, I know, I am not alone. The community is waiting, not for a victim, but for someone ready to rewrite their own story. That night, after receiving an overwhelming flood of encouragement and donations from my online supporters, I sat in front of my computer, hands trembling with emotion. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message from Bella, my stepsister who, just weeks ago, had mocked me and blamed me for tearing the family apart. I glanced at her name on the screen, feeling a twinge of pain. Memories came flooding back, our arguments, her harsh words. "If you didn't cling to that stupid computer, maybe I wouldn't have crashed my bike," or "You live in a fantasy world, you don't know how to grow up." I brushed those thoughts aside. Now was the time to listen. "Bella, hey, I know I've done a lot wrong. I thought everything about you was fake, a joke. But when I saw you break down like that on livestream, I realized how much you've endured. I regret it. I just want to make peace." I looked up at the ceiling, as if seeking an answer from within. A part of me still guarded itself. These people had betrayed me, stolen my dreams. But maybe, in the chaos of life, we all need a moment to forgive, to give ourselves a chance to live in peace. I slowly replied, "Me, Bella, if you truly regret it, that's good. But don't expect immediate forgiveness. Can you do anything to show me you're sincere? I need words to be backed by action." Bella was silent for a while. Maybe she was afraid I'd reject her outright. But then, after a few minutes, another message popped up. "Bella, I'm not just saying sorry. I've shared your stream on my influencer accounts, on Instagram and Twitter. Some of my friends helped spread it too. I hope you'll take this as a small first step." I couldn't believe my eyes. She was using her influence, however small, to support me. The past flashed before me. She once looked at me with disdain, and now she was becoming an ally, taking real steps to make amends. I reached for my phone with trembling hands and replied, "Me, thank you, not for the apology, but for the action. I'll need time to see where this leads." I wasn't sure if I could fully trust her yet, but at least she had shown me something. She didn't hurt me out of malice. That first step sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, my fractured family could find a shred of love again. Soon after Bella shared my stream link on her socials, viewership exploded. In just a few hours, the number climbed from 5,000 to over 12,000. Comments like, "Your story is inspiring," "You deserve to be on top," and "I believe in you," flooded the chat. Then, an email landed from a gaming accessory company. "We've been following your story. We'd like to sponsor your channel and collaborate on a tech giveaway for your community." I couldn't believe it. A sponsorship offer. something that had felt impossible just days ago, was now real. Not long after, another message came from a team of professional video editors. "We love your honest, inspiring content. Let us help you with video editing and thumbnails, free of charge until you reach 50,000 subscribers." I read that message over and over, my eyes burning with tears. Everything I had longed for, gear, technical help, expert guidance, was now offered freely, with no strings attached other than a promise to keep doing good work, to keep sharing my story, to inspire others like me. Yet among all the chaos, perhaps the moment I cherished most was the response from Jonce, a famous streamer I had admired for years. He used to live stream to tens of thousands, always cheerful and a bit goofy. A DM appeared. "Hey, I've been following your story. I saw how you stood up to your family, how you showed vulnerability but stayed strong. That's something I really respect. If you're interested, let's do a joint stream, connect you with a bigger audience." I smiled, shaking. My voice cracked even more than when I'd spoken to Bella. "Thank you. I'm honored. I'm ready. I've prepared everything." Since that day, every time I sit in front of the camera, my voice rings out with more confidence. I no longer tremble when I think about the zero I once stood before. Just a few weeks ago, I was using a cheap laptop, sitting in a dark room, swearing I'd quit live streaming. But now, here I am, with a sponsorship deal, about to collaborate with a well-known streamer, and supported by a community from all over. Yet, I'm not doing this for fame or money. I do it because I've realized my self-worth, and I want to share that belief with others. Through this journey, I cannot fail to mention Jack, my best friend since high school, who once sat silently next to me through the night, sharing instant noodles, comforting me when I cried after learning my gear was sold, and who's still by my side, supporting me technically and emotionally. Every morning he texts me, "Wake up, it's stream training time. We've got a collab with Jonce today. And don't forget your eye supplements." And every night, after my stream ends, he jumps into a voice call to ask if I'm tired, if I've eaten. Without Jack, I might have broken long ago. His presence is more solid than any contract or industry praise. He's not just a best friend. He's my companion, my big brother in a journey that once felt impossibly lonely. One afternoon, after a nearly 3-hour stream, I packed up my gear and sat at my desk, reaching for my phone. As I hesitated over which message to respond to first, the phone buzzed. The screen showed a line of text. "Life isn't perfect, but you've made something great from the pieces." It was Bella. I tapped in and saw her typing, "I know I can't make up for everything, but maybe we can start again, right?" I sat still, stunned. I'd never felt so free and uncertain at the same time. I typed slowly, "I can't say I forgive you yet, but you're giving me a reason to keep going. Thank you for sharing my streams and for this message. Could we be friends? Start a small channel for young people who've been hurt by their families, so they know someone out there is listening." Bella replied quickly, "You're too sweet. I'll always support you, even if I'm just your silly old stepsister. See you on your next stream." I closed my eyes and let out a breath. The loneliness I once carried in that house had faded a little, with just a message and a few clicks to share. I realized that sometimes broken relationships can slowly be mended, piece by piece, if both sides are willing. But whatever the future holds, I will keep walking my own path, striving, inspiring, and never forgetting those who once fell with me: Jack, the online community, and even Bella. The afternoon breeze stirred the flower petals outside the window. Faint golden sunlight danced on the sponsored keyboard. I opened my livestream interface, ready to schedule the upcoming joint stream with Jonce this weekend. Before clicking schedule, I closed my eyes and smiled quietly. I'm ready. And this time, there was no weight pressing on me, only belief and the will to build something from pain. So that one day, I can be proof for anyone who ever thought that a tech nerd from nowhere couldn't make it, that if you dare to stand up, share, and lean on each other, even when life locks you in, you can still find a door to the light. Under the soft glow of the studio lights, my workspace was calm and organized, a world I had built from the ruins of myself. Then one afternoon, an unexpected knock shattered that peace. I opened the door and found my mother and stepfather standing there, their expressions unreadable but clearly calculated. "We need to talk," my mother said. Her voice was softer than usual, but her eyes told a different story. My stepfather stood next to her, hands in his pockets, surveying the space critically. "Your studio, impressive," he said, then got to the point. "We think it's time you shared some of your financial gains with the family. After all, they did raise you." I looked at them, feeling empty inside. No warm greetings, no apologies for selling off my thousands of dollars worth of gear without asking. Just a request to share the profits. I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder I had prepared. It contained photos of my equipment listed on resale sites. I zoomed in on each image: the ultra-wide monitor, mechanical keyboard, latest gen RTX graphics card, professional recording mic. I also opened the messages they had sent me back then, full of scornful words: "Useless toys, grow up, are you going to live glued to a computer forever?" "I was treated like a stranger in my own home," I said calmly. "And now that I'm finding a little success, you come back asking for a cut?" My stepfather frowned, voice rising. "Who do you think you are? You think you got here on your own? Don't forget who fed you." I didn't look away. "Thank you for raising me. But nurturing paired with control, disdain, and humiliation is not love, it's a transaction." "Family is a responsibility," my mother said, voice getting louder. "You can't live selfishly like this." "A real family wouldn't secretly sell everything I cherished," I replied. "A real family wouldn't call my passion garbage." The air turned suffocating. My stepfather stepped forward, voice low like a threat. "You're not afraid I'll tell the internet how you went crazy after losing a game? Think your followers will still trust you?" I stood firm. "I have nothing to hide. And if I must, I'll tell everything: how you smashed furniture and yelled at my mother over money and your pride." My mother's face turned pale. "Are you threatening us?" "No. I'm setting boundaries," I said. "I'm asking you to leave my life. I've drawn the line and I will protect it." After they left, Jack, who'd walked this painful journey with me, came in carrying 2 cups of hot tea. "You okay?" Jack asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. I nodded, though my voice shook. I didn't think it would go this far, but I don't regret it. Jack looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "It feels like a funeral. Not for a person, but for the old, toxic relationship that once pretended to be family." I looked at the table where a USB stick lay, holding evidence, memories, and still raw wounds. "I'm going to ask them for compensation," I said evenly. "It won't cover the emotional damage, but at least it acknowledges they're wrong." The next day, I sent an email titled, "Request for compensation for unauthorized sale of personal property." Attached was a list of the items sold with an estimated total loss of over 120 million VND. I didn't expect them to accept it immediately, but I wanted them to know I was no longer a silent, easily manipulated child. The reply came sooner than I expected, a call from my mother. "Can't you reconsider?" she asked, voice trembling. "How could you do this to your own flesh and blood?" I sighed. "Being related doesn't give you the right to strip me of my dignity and rights." "You're so ungrateful." "No," I replied, "I've just been hurt too long without anyone calling it by its name." After that call, I knew the bridge was officially burned. But I also knew I had turned the page, with my self-respect intact. Jack came by that evening. He helped me rearrange the setup, preparing for the next stream. When the lights came on and the camera rolled, I looked straight into the lens and said, "Thank you to everyone who's believed in me. I'm not perfect, but I'm real. And from today on, I'll live for myself, no longer letting anyone else define my future." One ordinary morning, as I was getting ready to stream, I received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a sum of money, equal to the value of the gaming setup my mother and stepfather had sold without my consent. My heart was a mess. This might be a belated apology, or maybe just an attempt to repay what they took. I set the money on the table and stared at it for a long while. I'd been through so much pain and betrayal, I knew money couldn't make up for being devalued in your own home. After some thought, I decided not to keep the money for myself. Instead, I would donate it to help those in even tougher situations, those who had been abandoned and never given a chance to rise. In doing so, I felt like I was finally healing, turning pain into strength to keep moving forward. Soon after, I began packing, ready to leave the house that was once a home but now only held painful memories. Before leaving, I met with my mother and Bella, my stepsister. The air between us was still cold and distant. My mother looked at me with a mix of worry and regret, while Bella's expression was shy, tinged with remorse. But I knew that no matter what they said, I couldn't return to a relationship that had hurt me so deeply. "Are you really leaving?" my mother asked, voice choked. I nodded, speaking gently but firmly. "I need freedom. I need space to build a new life. Thank you for what once was, but now I have to move on in my own way." Bella looked at me, eyes red. "I hope someday we can be friends again." I smiled softly, though my heart still lingered. "We all need time." "I hope so too." I didn't carry much, just a backpack with a few clothes, documents, and my laptop. But inside me was a heart full of dreams and determination. I was no longer a discarded child. I was an adult, learning to stand on my own feet. At that moment, Jack appeared, as steady and unwavering as ever. He had always been there, sharing my burdens, lifting me up when I was tired, encouraging me when I lost hope. "You're not alone," Jack said. "You've got a whole community, you've got me, and most importantly, you've got yourself. Walk strong. Don't look back." I turned to look at Jack, my eyes filled with gratitude and resolve. The feeling was stronger than ever. I stepped out of the house, not as an escape, but as the beginning of someone new. A walk toward freedom, toward a future full of promise. The sunlight bathed the road ahead, as if blessing my unburdened steps. The final image that stayed in my mind was of myself walking confidently, never looking back, knowing the past would always be a part of me. But now I had chosen a different life, one of strength, resilience, and always facing forward.